Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about how to get the magic items you want as a player from your dungeon master. All right, so let's get into this. All right, so basically, I have to give a caveat. This is for Dungeons and Dragons 5th Edition Dungeon Masters, and I think this is going to work on 60% of all Dungeon Masters, 3 out of 5. Okay. The reason why it won't work on all D&D 5th Edition Dungeon Masters are some of the most unusual creatures on the planet. I think they're truly extraordinary. You have these people who are incredibly charismatic, incredibly intelligent, incredibly confident, right? And because of that, they don't come out of a cookie cutter. You get Dungeon Masters of there's a lot of variance in the Dungeon Master class, right? And so just be aware, this will only work on about 3 out of 5, but I don't think there's much danger in attempting it, all right? So here we go. So one, I'm incredibly blessed. Been having my Sunday game running, and we are really kicking it, man. We are like in a real sweet spot where basically each Dungeon Master gets a 4-week slot, 2 hours per session for 4 weeks. And they can run whatever they want. They don't have to ask anybody what they're going to run. They just say, I'm running this for 4 weeks. And here's a kicker, right? Like, if everybody at the table is like, oh, I do not like that, one, they keep it to themselves, right? And the reason why is the understanding, everybody at my table is a dungeon master, and we're like, hey, I'm going to put up with 4 weeks of your nonsense, and then you're going to play whatever I want. And that's the cost, right? It's the social contract we've made, right? And I love it, right? Now, one of the things that I didn't expect is a lot of players are like, Season 2, right, of the same one they ran before, which is no problem. It's great. And there's even like a time jump, and it works, right? So, you have all that going on. Wow, that was a Maserati. There's a Maserati in my neighborhood. What the heck? Like, that's kind of weird. The car was sitting in front of a house that... I think that car cost more than the house it was sitting in front of. That's interesting. All right, so basically, you have this situation where so you want to get your magic items from your dungeon master, right? And so one of the things that we've been doing is we run our games on Sunday night, and we have that time at the table. But there's a lot of discussion in a Facebook thread, and every game has its own thread. And you're like, so we're doing this thing where we're like, my player character is going to work toward this magic item and has plans for this magic item. And we've templated it, right? We're like, my player, you just put it in a template and say, my player character is working toward this magic item in your world, right? And the dungeon master's like, you're like, what? Pick a magic item? What is this, right? It started like, hey, this is kind of weird. But what our dungeon masters are now reading it as is, hey, you're not thinking about my game during the game. You're thinking about my game during the week. That's engagement, right? And dungeon masters are highly incented to make these things happen at some point within their 4 sessions. It's a big, big deal, right? And it's really fascinating. So here's the kicker, right? So I've been having this happen, right? And one of the things that I realized is one player will come to me and say, hey, this is the magic item that I want, right? And they'll write out, it has a new name, and it just lists all the features they want, right? And I'm like, ooh, you've created this new magic item. I'm so excited to see you engaging and building your own magic items, and now I get to decide if I'm going to put that into my game, and I can modify it and give it to you, or I can never give it to you, and and you'll see it on an NPC, right? Whatever I want to do, right? But the other thing is, I have other players who are like, hey, here's this wiki link. I want this, right? And it's from some jank, non-Dungeons & Dragons source, right? And it's like, here's some, Crumpty Indies idea of a magic item from XYZ on the internet, right? And one of the things I think is, the internet is amazing, but it's also filled with horrors, right? And so I think one of the things is, here's the hack, right? Find what you want. Read your stupid Reddit thread, right? And then find this incredibly powerful magic item. But skin it, right? Give it your own name. Pull one of the abilities out and put another ability in and sell it to me as yours, right? I'll tell you right now, like, you could put the most ridiculous magic item down. If I think the source is you, right, you got about a 90% chance of getting it. If you send me some link to some scrub site, right, that some non-D&D indie scrub site, right, I'm not going to give it to you because I just like, oh, you read a Reddit thread, right? And so it doesn't take much. And here's the issue, right? That's my prejudice. And I think a lot of dungeon masters have this prejudice because they're like, there's a bunch of jank sites out there, and there are. That actually, I keep saying to some indie scrub site, the reality is you could be getting it from Sly Flourish. He's not some jank scrub site. He's got amazing content that easily rivals what's happening on official Dungeons and Dragons content, right? But I don't know that you got there. And for every Sly Flourish, there's 10 scrub sites and scrub creators, right? And so that's the issue is skin it. Make me think it's your idea, right? I'm not going to look it up. I'm a busy person. I ain't going to have time for all that, right? Like, but just, do the, copy the text out, modify it, right? Make it yours. Make it yours in name and keep the ability that, from the original creator, right? And make sure you only do this in your local game. Like, you don't want to be doing this in a published game, right? Because you don't want to steal ideas from people in that way, right? Because there's money involved at that point. But for your dungeon master, relationship between you and your dungeon master, read your stupid Reddit thread, but don't tell me you did, right? That's the issue, and you're going to have to skin it. That's the best hack you can get so that you can get the magic items you want. That's how we do it in my crew. How you do it in your crew. I'd love to hear. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing. Have a wonderful millennium.